What is up, people? It is your boy, Bad Dog. Now, earlier this week, I did a top 10 all-time Yankee list, and I really like doing that video. And, you know, a couple of guys asked me, hey, Bad Dog, why don't you do a top 10 Giants list? And it's a great idea. Stuck in the 80s was the first guy to ask me, and it is a great idea. I don't know why I never thought to do it before. So I put together this list. Now, it wasn't as easy to put together a top 10 for the Giants as it was for the Yankees, in my opinion. The Yankees have such a great history, and of course, I may do another top 10, like an honorable top 10, because there's just so many great Yankee players. But it was a little more difficult for me to get the top 10 Giants, so, you know, I just put together this list, and again, let me know if you agree or disagree with it. It was a tougher list to put together. So number 10, I have Amani Toomer. Now, Amani Toomer was, and probably still is, I mean, Beckham is obviously fantastic, but Amani Toomer was the greatest receiver in the history of the New York Giants. Before Beckham got there, he held 16 receiving records. He had 668 receptions for 9,497 yards, 54 touchdowns, and he won a Super Bowl in 2007. Now, Amani Toomer was a very consistent Giant. He was huge in that 07 playoff. He had a lot of big catches. It's criminal that he never made a Pro Bowl. It is unbelievable to me that he never made a Pro Bowl. He's widely considered the Giants' greatest receiver in the history of their franchise. He was just a phenomenal player, very underrated wide receiver. He went about his business very quietly, and he always produced on the field. He was a really good receiver for the New York Giants, and I have him at number 10. Number 9, I have Carl Banks. Now, the statistics don't tell the whole story with Carl Banks at all, and with a lot of linebackers, they really don't. Carl Banks was a phenomenal linebacker, and he was overlooked because he played with two other Hall of Fame linebackers during the 90s when he played, or during the 80s and 90s when he played. He had 39.5 career sacks, 860 tackles. He won the Super Bowl championship in 1986 and 1990. He was a Pro Bowler in 1987. He also made the All-Pro team in 1987. And anybody that watched Carl Banks knows how great he really was. I mean, he was a dominant linebacker. Again, got overlooked because of who he played with. The 1986 playoffs, if you go back and watch that run through the Super Bowl, Carl Banks was the most dominant player on the field. He dominated against San Francisco. He dominated against Washington. He dominated the Super Bowl. He played like a man possessed. He was unbelievable from 1986 through 1990. He was one of the best linebackers in football. And again, he just got overlooked, but I have him at number 9 on the list. Number 8, I have Phil Simms. Phil Simms, before Eli Manning, obviously was the best quarterback in the history of the New York Giants. He passed for 33,462 yards and 199 touchdowns. Had a career record of 95 and 64 as a starter. A two-time Pro Bowler in 1985 and 1993. And, of course, he won the 1986 Super Bowl 21 MVP. He was the first player to say, I'm going to Disney World. 22 out of 25 or 261 and 3 touchdowns. As far as I know, he still has the highest completion percentage in the history of the Super Bowl. That could be inaccurate. I did not look that up. I just know he held that record for a long time. I don't know if it still stands. I think Phil Simms is a borderline Hall of Famer. I mean, he had a lot of injuries early in his career. He was benched in 83 in favor of Scott Bruner. He came back in 84 and threw for over 4,000 yards, which was very difficult to do. Not a lot of quarterbacks threw for over 4,000 yards back in the 80s. It was a rare feat to see that. He did it. And he got better as his career went on. So, you know, Phil Simms, I have him at number 8. Number 7, I have Harry Carson. And again, Harry Carson was a fantastic linebacker. The stats don't tell the whole story because, you know, sacks were not an official statistic until 1982. But Harry Carson was a 9-time Pro Bowl player. He had 11 interceptions and 14 fumble recoveries in his career. He was a 2-time All-Pro in 1981 and 1984. He was also a 4-time second-team All-Pro linebacker. And, of course, he won a Super Bowl in 1986. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2006. And, again, Harry Carson played on a lot of really bad Giants teams in the 70s and early 80s. But, again, he was probably the best player on the Giants at those times. And he would have been a lot better had he had a better team around him. But Harry Carson is a guy that knew how to set the defense. He was a great leader out there. And again, these don't show up in the box score. You have to watch linebackers really play to understand how dominant they are. So I have Harry Carson at number 7. Number 6, I have Tiki Barber, the greatest running back in the history of the New York Giants, Tiki Barber. People don't like what he said about Eli Manning, and I get it. Anybody that watched Tiki Barber play knows how great he was. And like I scream at the TV every week now, give it to Saquon. Back in the early 2000s, I was screaming, give it to Tiki. Tiki Barber didn't start the first 3 years of his career, and he only played 10 seasons in the NFL. He had 10,449 yards in 10 years. He averaged 4.7 yards per carry for his entire career. He also had 586 receptions in 5,183 receiving yards. He had 67 total touchdowns. He was a two-time Pro Bowler, and he made the All-Pro team in 2005 when he ran for 1,860 yards. Tiki Barber should be in the Hall of Fame. I honestly don't know why he's not. He was one of the best running backs in football between the years of 2000 and 2006, and his last 2 years were his best 2 years. He rushed for 1,860 yards in 2005 and 1,662 his last season. He retired at the peak of his career. Tiki Barber, I have at number 6. Number 5, I have Emlen Tunnell. Emlen the Gremlin. 79 interceptions, the second most in the history of the NFL, second only to Paul Krause's 81 interceptions. A 4-time All-Pro, a 9-time Pro Bowl player, inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1967, won a championship with the Giants in 1956, widely considered one of the greatest cornerbacks in the history of the NFL. A phenomenal player. Obviously, I didn't get to see him play, but you look at the history and watch the tape on him. He was just a phenomenal player, absolutely dominant on the defensive side of the ball. Number 4, I have Frank Gifford, widely considered the face of the Giants in the 50s. Hollywood Frank Gifford. He had the looks, he had the talent, he had everything you wanted. 3,609 yards in his NFL career, rushing 34 touchdowns. He also had 367 receptions for 5,438 yards in his career. That's an average of 14.8 yards a catch. Not bad for a halfback. He was a 4-time All-Pro running back, a 7-time Pro Bowl running back. He also threw 14 touchdowns and was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1977. Frank Gifford was a phenomenal player, phenomenal talent. And, of course, he went into the booth on Monday Night Football, and he was phenomenal at that as well. Frank Gifford I have at number 4. Number 3, I have Michael Strahan. Michael Strahan, the greatest defensive end in the history of the Giants. Obviously, he holds a single-season sack record with 22.5 sacks. He had 141.5 career sacks for the New York Giants, which is the most in their history. I'm going to get into that in a second because it could put an asterisk next to that. But he does hold the all-time record for sacks. And again, he played on a lot of bad Giants teams as well. He had 851 tackles. He was a 7-time Pro Bowl player, a 4-time All-Pro. He forced 24 fumbles in his career and won the championship in 2007. And again, he was just as effective in 2007 as he was his rookie season. Michael Strahan never slowed down. Just a phenomenal player. Again, just a shining light in a lot of bad Giants teams. We always wanted to watch Michael Strahan play. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2014. Well-deserved. Michael Strahan, just a phenomenal player. Amazing to watch him play. Just a dominant player. He was freaking awesome. I loved watching Strahan suit up and play. Watch Strahan love suiting up and stomping everybody the hell out. Have him at number 3. Number 2, I have, I have Eli Manning. The greatest quarterback in the history of the New York Giants, certainly a future Hall of Famer. 55,981 yards passing, 360 touchdowns, 2-time Super Bowl MVP in 2007 and 2011, 4-time Pro Bowl quarterback. Eli Manning, in my opinion, is very underrated. A lot of people say he's overrated. Takes a lot of heat, takes a lot of flack, never throws his team under the bus, never blames anybody for shortcomings. Is the consummate professional, an even better person. Eli Manning is the quiet leader of the New York Giants. He always has been. He will obviously have a place in Canton. He will be in the Ring of Fame. He is the greatest quarterback in the history of the New York Giants. He'll be back for 2019. And listen, I'm rooting for Eli Manning. I want him to succeed. I want the Giants to succeed. I want Eli Manning to go out in a winning fashion. But definitely I have him number 2 on the list. I think he is the second greatest Giant in the history of their franchise. Just an awesome player, an awesome quarterback. And again, he takes a lot of heat. And you know what? He just constantly does his thing out there. Number 1 is no surprise. It doesn't matter. Everybody knows number 1, and with good reason. Lawrence Taylor is not only the greatest Giant in the history of football, he's the greatest defensive player in the history of football. 132.5 sacks. Now, the reason I said Strahan and an asterisk is because Lawrence Taylor in 1981 had 9 sacks. Was not an official statistic. So really, Taylor also has 141.5 career sacks. 1986 MVP, 20.5 sacks, most ever by a linebacker. Defensive Player of the Year in 1981, 1982, 1986. The 10-time Pro Bowl player, 8-time All-Pro. NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year in 1981, 86 and 90 Super Bowl champion. He also had 11 interceptions in his career. He was named to the NFL 75th All-Anniversary Team. He had 1,089 tackles. Just an unbelievable player. Just, I mean, if you, there's not even words to describe how great Lawrence Taylor was. The absolute GOAT, the greatest defensive player in the history of this league. Just, and again, his statistics don't even tell how good this guy was. He chased running backs and wide receivers down from across the field. You had to, offenses changed the way they blocked because of this guy. You always had to know where he was. He invented the strip sack. Just this guy could take over a game like nobody's business. There will never, ever in my lifetime be another Lawrence Taylor. There's nobody close. Oh, Ray Lewis, J.J. Watt, not close. Not close. They could not do what Lawrence Taylor did. This guy was unfreaking believable. And anybody, I don't care who you root for that watched Lawrence Taylor play, there are Cowboys fans, Eagle fans, Redskins fans, they'll tell you Lawrence Taylor's the greatest player they've ever seen play. He is the greatest football player I've ever seen play. Without a doubt, there's no surprise. Lawrence Taylor, LT, number one. So that is my top 10 Giants list, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Do you agree? Who else would you put in the top 10? I don't think there's any arguing number one. If you're arguing number one for the Giants, you don't watch the Giants. You don't watch football. That simple. But 10 through 2, let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you think. You know, and I plan on doing a couple more of these down in the future. You know, like I said, I'll do an alternate top 10 for the Yankees. Maybe I'll do some honorable mentions for the Giants. I enjoy doing these videos. I hope you guys like watching them. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time. It's Bad Dog, and I'm out. Peace!